Like many people I recognise in the room here, I was at the very first of these conferences, which actually was nearly 11 years ago now. And we had a rather shaky start, I think, at Dunstan Hall. And I was reflecting in preparing this speech about how things have changed since then, and also, obviously, how they haven't. So, apart from acknowledging the development of the conference to what it is today, where we've got national speakers, the Care Minister, the Chair of CQC, Martin Green, I think it also reflects, I think, a significant development of the partnership between the sector and the council, which I think is unique, as Dennis has said. And I think we often don't agree about things. We have a robust discussion. There are things we profoundly disagree about. Norse Care, I ought to say, being one of them, and I'm happy to talk more about that, and certainly happy to talk more about that in the question and answer session later. But fundamentally, we agree about the importance of the sector and how we together represent that in discussions. And Dennis and I do a lot of work together on that, really. So what did we talk about 11 years ago, 10 years ago? Surprisingly, we talked about costs and we talked about care sector fees. We talked about commissioning. We didn't have in Norfolk then a sense of commissioning in the way that we do now. But what we had was a challenge from the sector about, for goodness sake, tell us what your intentions are. And we talked about something that you and we work with every day of the week, which is the balance and the relationship between cost and quality. You'll have to stop me reminiscing, but 10 years ago we had no personal care budgets. We've now got over 10,000 people with personal care budgets in Norfolk. 10 years ago, we were a very significant care provider. We provided over £1 million care hours a year of the domiciliary care hours provided in Norfolk. We ran 26 residential care homes, provided the care in 13 housing with care units, provided all the learning disability day services and a lot of the older people's day services. Now, we run only one in-house service in the council, a really good reablement service that was part-funded, is half-funded by the NHS, something we're very proud of. Everything else is provided differently. Norse Care for the residential homes, Independence Matters, really interesting social enterprise we set up last year that had its first AGM yesterday. Really significant change around that. And domiciliary care now provided entirely by the sector. We also were concerned about budgets. I remember having a sleepless night about a budget reduction of £200,000 from the voluntary sector. When I think now about what we've had to do, I wonder, however, I thought that was a problem. But 10 years ago, that seemed like a major problem. Now we're on the brink of the biggest change in social care legislation for 60 years. And how exciting is that? It'll fundamentally change the way we work. And I'm not going to, people in this room know as much or more about the Care Act than I do. But it really significantly strengthens our relationship and our role with the sector. And I think that's absolutely to be welcomed. The whole thrust of policy now directs us towards outcomes and not counting process. We've also, 10 years ago, dementia, we talked about it, was a worry. Now we're in a place where everybody's talking about it. We've got dementia-friendly communities. And thanks to the work that Willie Cruikshank and others have done in Norfolk, we're on the way to Norfolk being seen as a dementia-friendly county. Fantastic, really. Mental health, at risk of sounding too sycophantic to the Care Minister, Norman gave a very powerful speech last week at the ADAS conference where he absolutely majored on mental health. And we know there are issues about parity of esteem, and we know there are always issues about mental health as the poor relation of physical health. And we know we've got some real issues in Norfolk about mental health. But nevertheless, what we have is a real profile for us to think very differently about that. 10 years ago, we talked about integration, but we weren't quite sure what to do about it. now we have integrated commissioning. In all of our 5 CCGs, we have a team headed by Catherine Underwood, partly funded by the CCGs, partly funded by the Council, looking at commissioning together. From next Monday in Norfolk, 4/5 of the adult social care provision and community health we manage together under one single management structure with Norfolk Community Health and Care. These are small but very, very significant changes in getting the architecture right for how we take it further. Of course, integration is supported by the Better Care Fund. I, of course, am a fan of the Better Care Fund. Who wouldn't be if you were a local authority director of adult social services? Because it will see funding transfer to the local authority. And it's a game changer in terms of forging new relationships with the CCGs. Complicated in a county like Norfolk, where you've got 5 CCGs to negotiate with. Real issues about variable commitments to supporting social care. How did we deal with that? How do we manage risk across the piece? What it did, I think, is move us, and I think my colleagues from the CCGs would agree with me. I think it moved us from having cozy discussions with each other about let's work together to really, eyeballing each other about, okay, so where's the cash? How much is going to transfer? How much is going to happen? That put a completely different quality and sometimes difficult discussions that then took place. But let's not fool ourselves. A feature of this conference, colleagues, has been our openness and honesty about it. This is a place where we can talk openly between ourselves. The Better Care Fund is great, but we've seen absolutely unprecedented reductions in local authority funding. The Better Care Fund represents for Norfolk, and our plan has been approved subject to 2 conditions, which Catherine and the team are absolutely working on to make sure we can get that delivered, but it represents less than half of the budget reductions that we have to make next year. And that's an issue for us all as a sector. In fact, in Norfolk adult social care, we've seen an increase in contacts, requests for assistance. From 2008-9, we had 34,000 people contacting us, asking for help. Last year, we had 71,000. During the same period of time, we've reduced our spend in adult social care alone by something in the region of 70 million. Now, actually, I challenge other organizations to demonstrate that as a measure of efficiency. So I don't want to kind of bleat about money, but it is important that we put it in the context of that. So 10 years ago, we knew that we couldn't continue to deliver health and social care the way that we were doing in 2005-06. We needed a transformation program. It couldn't continue for the council to be such a big provider, for there to be such disparity. So Dennis mentioned the difference in unit cost. I think in 2007, our unit cost for domiciliary care in Norfolk was something in the region of £25 an hour. Maybe more than that, because it's always difficult in a council to know exactly what you're counting. Is that counting a bit of my salary? Is that so? I don't know about that. But at that time, we were buying care in the private sector for £12 an hour. And frankly, not always great care. Some really good care, but actually, with the parts of the county we couldn't get care, there were some real issues about equity in all of this. So gradually, we've transferred service to the sector and increased the fee levels, but not enough. I think that's the issue, really. So the relationship, and I think is unique. 10 years later, however, that relationship needs to play a different part now, because we're now at a time when we absolutely need to do things differently again. We can't afford now to be in a standoff position with each other. Of course, there are crucial issues we disagree about, and of course there are tensions, but ultimately this is about the whole care sector working together with different relationships between us. And that, I think, is what integration is. This isn't simply about the NHS and social care working together. It's, as Martin said, it's about the whole sector actually being integrated into one place, really. So I think there are 3 things we need to do, which sound very simple, but in fact, of course, if they were that simple, we'd have done them. The first is we have to support people in their communities differently. We have to pay much more attention to informal community-based support for people. Council now, we've got a program called Enabling Communities. We're talking about this across the council because frankly, it's not something that can be done in social care. It's something that's got to be done across the whole approach the council has to reaching into communities. But we've got to make sure that somebody approaching us for care doesn't get pointed too quickly to a personal care budget. Actually, what they do is they get pointed to solutions in their community, advice and support in their community. And it's only when their formal needs, it's quite clear they need something else, that we provide that care. And then when we provide that care, we provide that in an integrated way. And I don't just mean integrated between health and social care. I mean with the care sector absolutely as a whole, being colleagues in this, being partners in this, and not recipients of a care plan faxed to them about what's going to be delivered 3 times a day. And then the third bit of this is that we have the integration behind that. So we have joined up commissioning structures behind that so that strategically we can do this. And that, I think, means about us being much bolder about the pooling of money. We've really got to see one health and social care pound in Norfolk. We've talked about this a long time, but now's the time to really do this. So what does this mean, I think, for independent sector care? I think the days when local authorities think up contracts in darkened rooms and sort of put them out there and hope something happens have got to have gone. We've got to be working as partners in service delivery. And we, in our market position statement that I know Steve will talk about later on, we talk about changes that we intend to make in home care in the east and the west of the county next year as part of delivering a very different outcome-based approach to home care, looking at what's happened in Wiltshire and other places across the country. This is going to be about outcomes and not on time and task. We want more smaller block contracts for this provision. And we want to see home care providers, who actually, of course, are the people who know the people they're providing care for best, helping them to plan their care, not waiting for us to determine a care plan, but agreeing this and helping them to engage in community-based activities so that we bring the well-being. I can see Jonathan is looking at me nervously. I will begin to wrap up, really. So I think it is about co-colleagues, a different approach to this. All of this needs to be backed by our common approach to quality. The work of the sector in delivering harm-free care, the harm-free care initiative, really important. And we want to develop with you the next stage of the Harwood Care Charter and think about how best to manage that and how best to link this with the work that CQC are doing. So better prevention, local informal support, good advice and information, then fully integrated delivery backed by fully integrated commissioning. But I'm going to end with the money. Let's not skirt this. It's tougher than we've known it, and it's not going to get any easier. There's always a challenge about care home fees. And of course, we all want to support a sustainable care market, and we absolutely would want to see that the living wage is affordable for providers. The council has moved to a committee structure, so we have a social care committee, and our chair, Sue Whitaker, is here today and will be ending the conference. And I think Sue would absolutely agree that across the committee there's cross-party support for really trying to understand the costs of social care, getting beneath this to have a sustainable process about this. We know that social care is the key, holds part of the key. Of course, there are, as David Pryor was saying, there are multifaceted reasons why we see people queuing up at accident emergency. But we know social care is a key part of the solution to that. And we've got to make sure that we absolutely play our part in that as a sector, as a whole. And I think as part of that, in a sense, this is our problem. It's not the NHS's problem. It's not the Norfolk and Norwich's problem. It's the problem of us, all of us in this room. Because the more we can support reductions in emergency admissions and the more we can support people getting out of hospital in a timely way, frankly, the more resource there is there in the community. So this is about us really seeing this as one problem. So I think the Better Care Fund's a start. We need to go much further in Norfolk with pooling our budgets. And already we'll see the NHS colleagues picking up some healthcare costs, some social care costs. But they're only going to do that, of course, when they see an absolute benefit to them in doing so. And we can demonstrate that benefit. So I suppose in conclusion, I think if there ever was time for a new contract and a compact across the sector, I think if there ever was time for courageous leadership, we're not going to get a cheque from Whitehall unless Norman's going to write one when he comes up here in 5 years. We're not going to get a new national solution to this. We've got the Care Act, we have national policy directions to support us, but the solution, colleagues, actually, frankly, has got to be in this room, and we in Norfolk, in a sense, have got to show the leadership to deliver it. Thank you very much.